We're joined today by Maita, and in particular, Maria Maita Kepler, who is the principal songwriter. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. It's so good to see you.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
You know, the new album is called I Just Want to Be Wild for You. It's out February 18th on Kill Rock Stars. And it's really a great piece of work. I'm sure you're incredibly proud of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I am proud. I mean, it's been a lot of work, but I'm excited to get to release it. Uh, another record into the pandemic, but
Yeah.
people need music.
You released that first one. I mean, you were just perfectly timed to release it for the pandemic for your debut album, Best Wishes. And
Like we planned it.
yeah, that one was recorded on stage at a 100-year-old theater. This one was recorded in a studio in a church basement. Any particular thoughts for why you chose the recording spaces you did?
We definitely prioritize recording in places where we feel comfortable, or where we always record within our circle, I guess, for in terms of an engineer. So the 100-year-old theater was engineered. The basics were engineered by Bart Budwig, who's a good friend, fellow musician, and so it was just comfortable to go out there and record with him. And then this upcoming record, the basement, the studio in the basement of the church was partially built by Matthew Zeltzer, who engineered I Just Want to Be Wild for You, who's also in the band. So we just want to work in spaces that feel comfortable, where we really know the studio, and where we can kind of, as much as possible, sink into that feeling of we're just practicing in our basement when we're surrounded actually by really nice gear.
You know, one of the songs that we've gotten to know a little bit off the forthcoming album is Pastel Concrete. And it was actually inspired by sort of uncomfortable surroundings in a way. Can you talk a little bit about your experience and what led to that song?
Yeah, I actually think most of my songs are inspired by uncomfortable situations. Um, I had to go on this trip, this work trip to Santa Monica, and I was actually on tour in Europe at the time when I found out I had to go on this spontaneous trip, because we're always juggling multiple jobs as musicians. And so I flew directly from, I think we were in Italy, where I was touring, directly to Santa Monica. And I grew up in Oregon. I've lived in Oregon my whole life. And just Southern California, Santa Monica, that whole vibe, especially in contrast to where I was playing music. It felt really strange to me. It kind of felt a little bit empty and a little bit cold, but also had this mystique of like Southern California, like Santa Monica, like boardwalk and all of that. So it was just this mixture of I should feel something. I do feel something. I don't know if it's good. Yeah.
Well, it was sort of like you, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but you saw people who were doing different things than you do, but had the same artistic struggles. And so you could relate to the struggle, but maybe not to the rest of it all.
That's true. Yeah. There's a lot of people trying to make it in LA. It's very true. And that I think that was just my attempt to find some thread of connection, and which I am often trying to do whenever there's some kind of uncomfortable moment. So I was just looking around me, and I was like, you know what? Actually, we're not so different. We're all fighting the same fight. It's a hustle for everyone. So
yeah, we're joined today by Maria, who is essentially Maita, and we'd love to hear some music if we could.
Yeah. I'll play that song then, since we're talking about it, Pastel Concrete. All right. Pastel concrete, boardwalk, beach, a condominium, after a town in Italy. Sea spray parking, you can cross beneath the overpass to reach the sin that still is free. I feel my feeling, I feel a part of something sunshine and dreams we still can see. Ooh, and we may still get paid for it. Ooh, we may still get paid for it. I can't afford your love. I can't afford your love. Can't afford your love. I can't afford your love. Holy morning, my European clock ticking me to wake up in LA. A place of morning, I land upon the checker square so tall it catches all the crimson air. I do not know you, but I do know you're fine. I hope the casting goes alright next week. Ooh, and I hope you'll be paid for it. Ooh, I hope you'll be paid for it. I can't afford your love. 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 I can't afford your love.
That is Maria Maita Kepler. And of course, Maita is the band. And, you know, I'm just totally, it was beautiful, by the way. I'm totally fascinated by your upbringing. You split time between your mom's house and your dad's house, and both very traditional. It just happened that your mom's house was a traditional Japanese house, only spoke Japanese, ate on the floor, very traditional. Then you'd go over to your dad for some frozen pizza. And I would imagine that having like these two divergent cultures had both tremendous upsides and maybe an occasional downside.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm sure I can definitely think of all the upsides. Maybe there were downsides, but it's hard for me to know what they would be because I don't really know anything else, I guess I would
Right.
say, so like.
Well, the reason that I said downside
Yeah.
is because you went to art school, and I believe that part of that was spending a couple, 3 months over in Japan learning how to do, wood prints. And then when you came back to San Francisco, and you actually did a show. I believe that this is correct. You'll have to fact check me on this, but it was about trying to sort of work out this dual identity and figuring out if, where you landed in this continuum.
Right. Yeah. So gosh, okay. Yes. The timeline. So I went to Japan before my senior year in college and learned the Japanese printmaking. And then in college, like for my senior year, my thesis was on ukiyo-e and mixed race identity, which is like a traditional Japanese printmaking method. And then I was using that to explore this mixed race identity, which is completely like my whole upbringing kind of comes into that. So I did end up doing these like 3-panel like house landscapes, basically, like where one wall is gone and you can just see the interior of my house basically that I grew up in, and all the differences and like kind of the two worlds trying to collide, I guess. I guess like there were a couple things about it that I guess it is hard to feel like you have a couple different identities within you and that don't always, they're never both recognized at the same time. So and oftentimes when you're in one place, because you inside yourself have both identities and only one of them is getting recognized, you do end up feeling like part of you is not being seen. And I think that's where that feeling of disconnect or loneliness comes from, is just feeling like this one part of you isn't really understood by wherever you're at.
So, you know, when I mentioned that internship in Japan, and when you were doing that internship, it feels like, um, you know, you have described that time as being like maybe the loneliest that you've ever been. And it's led to another great song from you, called Loneliness. And so, and I wondered if that was tied into, you know, that upbringing, because being in a house that only spoke Japanese, you should be at least somewhat comfortable in that environment.
Well, I think that was the hard part, is like I am very comfortable in that environment and I speak the language fluently. And I, when I'm at my grandparents' house in Japan, it's like I feel at home in a lot of ways. So I think what was difficult is I went to Kyoto and felt at home right away, until I started to kind of live there and realize that the people there didn't necessarily know that I felt at home or feel that I was like comfortable there, or that it felt like part of my identity. So then it kind of felt like everywhere I went, people just, it was like that thing of like the Japanese side of me wasn't really being seen because I seem so American when I'm there. And it was almost because I was so comfortable and I wanted to fit in and wasn't fitting in, that it made the feeling so much worse, I guess.
Yeah. You know, I did want to touch on one other thing, about, you know, your artwork, because you seem to be one of those people where making things, creating is just really such a central core part of who you are. And you've always drawn, and you've written quite a bit. And before you started writing songs, you were writing prose. The thing that I really want people to do is not only check out this new record that's coming out on the 18th, but also check out the first record, which got delivered right when the pandemic started. And when you were, when you lost the ability to tour on this great debut album, you decided to find other ways to keep it in the public eye. And one of those ways was creating a series of prints around those songs. And all of that is still available for purchase, and it's all just great stuff. So I just want to make sure that people know that that's out there. But do you ever like like have a balance where, you know, the muse is telling you to do this or that or the other?
Yeah, I mean, that was my struggle growing up, actually, is like I would get home from school and I would be like, do I write my great novel? This is when I'm 12 or 13, it doesn't, it's, yeah. Do I write my novel? Do I spend time painting or drawing, or do I practice music? Especially later on in later years, because I didn't start playing music really until like early high school. And I was always so torn, and it was like a source of anxiety not knowing which one to spend time on. So I think sometimes that happens these days, but music kind of took over, I would say. A lot of what I do now is music related, because one thing just kind of overwhelms the others. I'm really glad that music actually has allowed me an opportunity to tap into the visual arts, basically because I kind of got burnt out on that when I was in college. And then I emerged and I was like, I'm just going to do music. And now I like, with the prints and like with designing like shirts and posters and things, I've started to get back into it and feel a little bit more inspired by that world. And in recent months, I've been writing prose again, and I still struggle with knowing which one to do, but I guess I've just been, because writing and art are a little bit more hobby things that I'm doing right now. I guess I'm not putting that much pressure on myself, which feels good.
And as if you don't have enough outlets, you know, you've been doing your own videos too, which are great and charming.
Yeah, it's that is, I think, one of the things where I'm like, this is too much. I'm not going to be able to dive into this world in any deep way, but it was fun to play around with it.
Yeah, I love the video from the first album on Somebody Left Their Wallet.
Oh,
The little coda at the end is as sweet as anything I've ever seen in my life.
yeah.
It's
You
really
you found the secret scene.
yeah, absolutely. We're joined today by Maria from Maita, and we'd love to hear another song if we could.
All right. Well, let's do Loneliness since we talked about it. I'll just check my tuning real quick here. It's like a real show.
While we're doing that, the new album is I Just Want to Be Wild for You, and it is out on Kill Rock Stars on February 18th.
Cool. Loneliness. Out of the restaurant onto the pavement, I got my own face in a window arrangement. Before I could pose till my chin rests, my lips silent paced. It's no wonder I was left alone. Back in old Kyoto, I pedaled my bicycle, stared at the windows, hoped for a miracle, wove through the cars, paused at convenience store, slipped with my journal, paper and pen. Ooh, friend, where'd you go, where have you been? I spent years on your arm, I spent years in your bed, cursed your name at the ground, clung to you in a crowd. We were always so close, self-centered ghost. And where are you Flip through the pages, all the things I said, lists and commandments. Thou shalt not have it, sipping and guilty, beer down the sink. I never could manage to drink alone. Laying on the futon, I listen to rats in the wall, how they scuffle and fight through the night. I feel like a child, something dark was waiting to do me some harm, and the nights were so long. Ooh, friend, where'd you go, where have you been? I spent years on your arm, I spent years in your bed, cursed your name at the ground, clung to you in a crowd. We were always so close, self-centered ghost. And where are you now, baby? And where are you now, baby? And where are you now, baby? And where are you now,
That's Maria Maita Kepler of Maita, and the track Loneliness performed live for us today. It is the track that opens up the brand new album, I Just Want to Be Wild for You, coming out February 18th on Kill Rock Stars. And that was just lovely. Hey, people should check out the video for that track that's online. It's haunting and wonderful, and also fairly weird.
Yeah. Fairly weird is good, yeah.
I wanted to just mention that, when you finished college, you did an internship in San Francisco, and you mentioned Matthew earlier, and he is in your band, plays guitar, also co-produced a lot of the music. And You have actually been very supportive of each other. So not only is he in your band, but you have been in his band, the American West, which produces a lot of really good music as well.
Yeah, yeah. He's, that was, I think a few years, I'm trying to remember the last time we did American West stuff, but he kind of decided to step back from that, at least for a little while. So it's been a little while since we've done it, but it was pretty cool experience, because we would tour together and play these shows that didn't necessarily like it. I feel like it was a little bit strange for the audience because one project was kind of more Americana, and then my stuff is a little more like folk rock later on.
It's
Um,
surprising, right? To hear that.
so so yeah, it was like kind of an odd thing to put us together, and we would do this thing where we trade off songs. So then people were really confused, because it was just this like push pull, and it was really difficult, I think, for people to kind of understand that those two separate projects. I think we didn't do anyone any favors. Um, so, but it was a lot of fun. Like we did a lot of touring, just the two of us, and I played viola and sang harmonies on his stuff, which was really cool for me.
Yeah, like a lot of folks, these overnight success stories were years in the making. What were some of those really early gigs like? I imagine you were playing to, incredibly small crowds.
Oh yeah, yes, definitely. We played, and I've literally played shows where one person shows up, and then we're like, I guess we're gonna do this. I've like played shows where no person shows up and it's just the bartender, and we're like, do we play? Do we not play? What do you think? Um, and our rule generally is to just play. We play. We always play, no matter how few people there are. So back in those days, I mean, I was really green when we first started touring a lot, as anyone is when they first start. In terms of live shows, I'd only done like open mic stuff, so we cut our teeth on really like a lot of shows that were not great. That we just kind of like self booked because we just wanted to get out of town and get on the road. But I'm really grateful for those shows because I basically like threw myself into playing live, in rooms where people didn't really care about the music necessarily. And so not only did I get a lot of practice playing live and setting up gear and loading in, loading out, and traveling, and how to be flexible on the road, but I also got really good at understanding that like you might not be listened to, and that a bad show is just might be a bad show, and that you don't need to get out of shape, and you can just persist and play on and play for the one person who maybe is listening. I think it's a really valuable lesson that no matter what stage in your life you're at or in your career, you're gonna have a bad show. Like our band could be 10 times, 20 times bigger, and we're still gonna have those nights where we don't feel that love from the audience. And I think that it's important to understand that that's going to happen and to be happy to play music regardless. So
Yeah.
it was great practice.
We were talking earlier in the interview about, your relentless creativity. And I think you mentioned, at 12, do I write my novel now? and I have to say that all of that work writing, I mean, it's just got to have done its job. You must have your 10,000 hours in because your lyrics are so great. But I'm really interested in that transition from you writing stories, contemplating writing a novel, and then wanting to write songs about the difficulties or the complexities of life, and realizing that you've got 3 to 4 minutes to get that done. And I imagine that was a transition.
Yeah, it is. I guess my love, I had such a love for books, like young adult, like sci-fi fiction and all that. And that's where I started writing prose. Basically, when I start to fall in love with something, I just want to be part of that world from the creator standpoint. So when I got really into just like music, like from like a passion standpoint in terms of like not just what was on the radio, but music that I was finding for myself and that really connected with me. When I first started listening to these artists, I was like in awe and I was in love with this music. And then eventually, like the natural course for me is, oh, I really want to try to make something like this myself. So it wasn't so much like it felt like a different medium, I guess, for me. Um, I will say that I'm guilty of throwing a lot of words into a song sometimes. Like the last album, the wallet song, you know,
Yeah.
I there's a lot of words in it. And I right when I started writing songs, I would throw a lot of words in because I think I just really had a lot to say. And it's only in the last couple albums that I've kind of started to be like, hey, like let's think about economy here. And maybe that is actually a more challenging assignment for somebody to try
And,
to boil things down.
and that's fine, but I want you to know I love the Wallet song, so it's no harm, no foul. You've shown absolutely no signs of it today during the interview, but you've described yourself as an introvert. And you also have said that when you were young, you just wanted people to get along, but you've made a little bit of a transition in that you are more than willing to say the hard thing or put the tough thing in a song.
Yes. I think that there's some kind of security, there's some kind of distance in music that I believed existed where I could, once I wrote a song, it kind of ceases to be something that I'm saying like myself in real time because there's these barriers between me, like my whatever I'm feeling or my words and the audience, which is melody and performance and something being something that's already crafted and created that can go out there. And then there's a little bit of mystery because is it about me? Is it about somebody else? Like you never really know. And so I think that distance kind of allowed me to say hard things and say the truth to the best of my ability. I'll also say that I do feel like I'm fairly introverted, but in the last couple of years, I feel like I've stopped being very private. Like I don't consider myself to be a very private person. I consider myself to be kind of an open book. If you get me one-on-one, and that's the key is like one-on-one conversations, and that's where if I'm in a big group, I don't. That's why talking on the mic is really hard for me because at a show, like it's like me and a bunch of people, I can't. I have a hard time.
Like if it wasn't this way, life would be too predictable and too boring. But people are complicated.
Mhm.
And you can be introverted, but that doesn't mean that you can't be brave or that you can't be joyful or you can't be funny or any of those things. I mean,
Totally.
we're all complicated. And just to sort of bring that point home, I love one of your writing exercises, which is to go to somebody else's open mic and find a piece of like a lyric fragment that you really think is not very good. And then cheesy might be the right way of framing it. And then to take that and rework it and make it into something that you do feel good about.
Right. Yeah, I haven't been able to do that with COVID happening. There's not a lot of open mics out there, but I mean, I feel kind of like a jerk saying that, but it's, I think that I'm guilty of having written uninspired or cliched lines. I think we all are. And I do love that exercise of listening and being like, that doesn't resonate with me. Why doesn't it resonate with me? How would I have expressed that particular thing?
I think that you're cool, though. I think the thing that would make you a jerk would be if you went back to that person and rubbed your song in their face.
Oh.
That would make you a jerk. But just using it as inspiration is, I think, kind of beautiful in a way. Because what you're doing is you're unearthing that kernel of truth that does have value from, the cheesiness of the
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and you could do it with anything. You could listen to just like the top 40s radio and probably do the same exercise. And it doesn't mean those songs are, any less valid. It's just they're not the song that maybe you want to be writing.
Right.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, the proof of your writing is in the new project, which is really special. The album is called I Just Want to Be Wild for You, and there are a few songs floating around online, and of course we've been playing them as well, Pastel Concrete taking the lead for us, but just really, really great stuff. And Maria, it's just been such a pleasure to get to know you and to get into your work a little bit deeper. Congratulations on the new record. We'd love to hear one more song if we could.
Yeah, I think I will do, well, this has been a pretty chill session. Obviously it's just me, but I'll play a song that's usually more of a rocker, but I'll just do it solo and we can use our imaginations on what that's all about. This song is called Honey, Have I Lost It All? And it was a song that it was like kind of a writer's block song. I was feeling pretty like uninspired and dejected about my writing and not sure if it was good anymore, if I had any other good songs in me, which I think is pretty common fear. And so it's kind of just about chasing that inspiration, that kernel of inspiration, and how fruitless that can sometimes feel, and comparing yourself to others and how fruitless that can feel, and all of the above. For you, who's your God? I want a piece, break one off. Where'd you find your light? I wanna be a music box. Hold the love, it bathes you, rose and cerulean. They believe, oh, they believe, oh, they believe, oh, they believe, they believe, oh, they believe, oh, they believe, oh, they believe. Baby, have I lost it all? There was honey dripping in these walls, dry licked and letting my tongue. I was hasty, tearing towards the sun. I see the same patterns written in everyone. I had the same pages sitting alone in the corner of the bar in a town of folks I hate to know. Tell me, is it real enough? Ooh, 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 ooh. For you, who's your God? I want your every word. Where'd you find your light? I wanna be a singing bird. Talk of how they shared your cup, what an honor, caller number one. Would you fall for me, oh, fall for me, oh, fall for me, oh, fall for me, fall for me, oh, fall for me, oh, fall for me, oh, fall for me. Baby, have I lost it all? I tried to tease that sugar from every thought they pushed around you. Rose of love, now they twist their hands and call it love. I would be one of them, I rest my head, cradled by something better than anything bitter, spreading out across my tongue. Ooh. Tell me, is it good enough? Ooh, 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 ooh.
Didn't miss the rock band at all. That was great. Maria Maita Kepler on the bridge. Of course, Maita, the new album that's coming out is I Just Want to Be Wild for You, February 18th on Kill Rock Stars. You actually have a part 1 and a part 2 to that song on the album. What's that about?
Oh yeah, so part 1 You Sure Can Kill a Sunday, part one. And part two is not out yet. But that was basically about a fight that was about nothing, that I think a lot of
Those never happen.
couples can relate to. And it just ruined a whole day. So I wrote a song that was from my perspective, and then a song that was from my partner's perspective, which is actually technically just my perspective of my partner's perspective, which is something that was pointed out to me. But yeah, so they just kind of go right into each other. So, and there's little like Easter eggs in each one, or like certain things get repeated in either song, but you'll just have to dissect that when the album comes out.
Yeah, well, I have to tell you, I'm a fan now. I think it's going to be really. I think everybody should just line up on February 18th. I Just Want to Be Wild for You, the new album on Kill Rock Stars from Maita. And Maria, thanks so much for taking the time and joining us today. I know you don't have to do this, and now that we're at least glimpsing the beginning of touring again, I sure hope that at some point you make it to Kansas City.
I agree. I hope so too. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure.
Yeah, Maria from Maita today on The Bridge.